Picture a life where every step feels like a calculation, where you tiptoe around tension, silence your real thoughts, and bury discomfort in the hope that peace will magically arise from avoidance. Sounds familiar, but here's a hard truth no one wants to admit. The peace you think you're preserving is a lie. That very silence, that comfort you're clinging to, it's quietly becoming the source of your deepest pain. What if I told you that the very thing you're avoiding, conflict, is not a threat, but your gateway to transformation? Today, we're confronting one of the rawest, most unforgiving truths nature has to offer, that avoiding conflict might be the biggest mistake you're making. In a world that idolizes convenience, approval, and surface-level agreement, nature does something bold. It stands firm like a storm, showing us that real growth, deep truth, and authentic identity are forged in fire, not in comfort. This video will take you deep into the uncomfortable but necessary spaces of confrontation, both external and internal. And if you stay till the end, you'll hear one final truth, one so powerful and unsettling that it might dismantle who you thought you were, and begin rebuilding you into someone truly unbreakable. If you're pulled toward the intensity of real philosophy, the sharp edge of psychological truth, and the unsettling clarity that self-awareness brings, then this video was made for you. We're not here for buzzwords or pretty phrases. We're here to stare into the darkness we've been avoiding, to burn away illusions, to awaken something real. So, before we dive in, take a moment, subscribe, like, share, and drop your thoughts below. Your voice matters here, because what you're about to hear won't just challenge you, it may shift the way you experience your entire existence. Let's begin. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't write for comfort. He didn't try to console, to appease, or to sugarcoat reality. His words were meant to provoke, to strip away pretense, and to force people to see life in its raw, untamed form, chaotic, painful, indifferent, yet powerful. One of his harshest truths? That avoiding conflict, within and without, is one of the most dangerous paths a human can take. It halts your evolution, it blurs your identity, and worse, it quietly feeds the inner chaos you thought you had buried. Think back to the last difficult conversation you avoided. Maybe you swallowed your voice instead of standing tall. Maybe you walked away from betrayal instead of demanding truth. Maybe you laughed when you should have screamed. Sure, you sidestepped tension on the outside, but something inside you began to rot. Nietzsche saw this clearly. Avoiding confrontation isn't an act of peace. It's an act of slow decay. And here's the cruel paradox. Every time you retreat from conflict, you become weaker, more bitter, and less true to yourself. You trade depth for acceptance. You exchange integrity for the illusion of harmony. But illusions always break. Because the war you dodge out there always resurfaces in here. And when it does, it's louder, uglier, and far more destructive. Carl Jung mirrored this when he warned, "What you resist doesn't vanish, it grows." Avoidance doesn't dissolve your problem, it multiplies it, it feeds it, it reshapes who you are from the inside out. Nietzsche understood that we are meant to struggle, not just with the world but with ourselves. Struggle is not failure, it's the birthplace of everything real: strength, clarity, identity. But modern culture has rewritten that code. We've been conditioned to fear disagreement, taught that being agreeable is better than being honest, that keeping the peace matters more than standing in truth. So we suppress, we shrink, we compromise. But here's what no one told you. Conflict isn't your enemy. It's your proven ground. Think about it. When did you become who you are today? Was it during ease, or was it during trials? Was it when everyone cheered for you, or when you stood alone. The most valuable parts of you, the strength, the wisdom, the resilience, were born in discomfort, in resistance. Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." He meant this. The light you wish to become cannot exist without first walking through your shadows. So why do we keep avoiding it? Because conflict makes us feel exposed. It makes us face our fragility, our fears, our illusions of control. But here's a question worth asking. What if that exposure is the first step toward liberation? Every confrontation you avoid is a lesson missed. Every truth you bury is a part of yourself you deny. Growth doesn't happen in stillness. It happens when things tear, crack, and rebuild. Muscles break to grow stronger. Hearts shatter to become wiser. And egos must die so the soul can finally live. So ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? Is it someone else's anger, or your own fear of being seen? Is it rejection, or the haunting truth that you've been living someone else's script? Is it judgment, or the guilt of betraying yourself again and again? Nietzsche's philosophy isn't here to make you feel good. It's here to give you something better. Power, unfiltered, wild, transformative. But only if you're willing to step into the fire. And this is only the beginning. Because in the next section, we're going to explore the most dangerous outcome of conflict avoidance. Something that doesn't just damage you, but poisons your relationships, your choices, and your future. But first, let's talk about what this avoidance does to the people around you. You think you're protecting them when you stay silent. You're not. You're abandoning them. You're building connections on false foundations, on silence, not truth. Nietzsche made it clear. When you sacrifice authenticity to avoid confrontation, it's not noble, it's cowardice. He once wrote, "People don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. And yet every illusion you uphold in the name of comfort becomes a cage, for you, and for those who need your honesty to grow." Think of your closest relationships. How often have you swallowed your voice to keep things calm? How many times have you said yes when your soul screamed no? That's not love, that's fear. And nature sees it for what it is, weakness pretending to be virtue. But let's go even deeper, because the most dangerous avoidance doesn't happen between you and others, it happens inside. You shut down your instincts. You ignore the whisper that says, "This isn't right." You deny the voice that says, "You were meant for more." Nietzsche didn't just speak about outer wars. He spoke about the inner battleground, the soul. He believed no one can walk your path for you. No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life. That river? It's the space between who you are and who you pretend to be, between your comfort and your calling, between fear and freedom, and you have to cross it alone. It's terrifying. It's painful. But it's the only road to who you were meant to become. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the higher self, is born not in stillness, but in destruction. You must break the illusions. You must shed the masks. Only then can your real self emerge. But this is where most people stop. They feel the discomfort, the rising tension, the fear of being rejected. And they run. They call it keeping the peace, but inside they're suffocating. They wear a mask so long they forget who they ever were without it. And Nietzsche would call that what it is, the slow death of the soul. You're not here to be palatable. You're not here to be liked. You're here to evolve. And evolution? It's war. A war between potential and habit, between your truth and your fears, between the version of you that's alive and the one just trying to survive. So how do you stop running? First, understand this. Conflict isn't chaos. It's clarity trying to surface. It's truth trying to speak. It's a boundary begging to be drawn. Nature challenges us to be strong enough to speak honestly and brave enough to stand in that truth. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to be loud. But you must be real. You can confront without destroying. You can disagree without hatred. But you cannot grow without friction. Even psychology backs this up. Jordan Peterson, heavily influenced by Nietzsche, warns that self-betrayal in the name of peace leads to bitterness and regret. Silence isn't harmony. It's a ticking bomb. And the longer you delay the truth, the deeper the damage, both in you and those who rely on your honesty, especially when it comes to choices. Every moment of conflict avoidance is a moment of self-betrayal, and every act of self-betrayal is a step away from the life you were meant to live. But you weren't born to shrink. You were born to rise, and rising takes resistance. Even the caterpillar must fight to become the butterfly. The cocoon is pressure, the transformation is pain, but the result? Flight. There is no growth without conflict. There is no freedom without truth. So now ask yourself, what is one truth I've been afraid to speak because of the conflict it might cause? What is one conversation I've delayed because I fear the discomfort it might bring? Your answer to that question might just change everything. There's a moment, right now, waiting for you on the other side of a confrontation you've been avoiding. It's not just about standing your ground. It's about discovering who you really are. Nietzsche once echoed this: become who you are. But how can you become anything if you constantly retreat from the very challenges designed to reveal your strength? Here's the paradox most never see. Conflict, when met with courage and clarity, doesn't destroy. It distills. It doesn't break you. It brings you back to yourself. It removes the noise. It strips the masks. And it reconnects you to the voice that's been buried under years of pleasing, complying, and pretending. In Part 3, we'll dive into the deepest, most devastating cost of conflict avoidance. Not just how it shapes your choices, but how it silently steals your life's direction. And we'll uncover one ancient truth that can shatter the illusion and set you free. For good. Section 1. The cost you don't see until it's too late. There's a hidden tax you pay every time you back down from a confrontation. It's not always obvious at first, but Nietzsche saw it with terrifying clarity. When you constantly sidestep conflict, you're not just avoiding tension. You're handing over your future. You're letting fear, not your values, write the script of your life. Soon, your reality becomes a mirror of everything you never had the courage to question. And the longer you avoid standing up, the more passive you become. You stop making bold decisions. You start reacting instead of choosing. Worse still, you confuse compliance with peace. You mistake suppression for virtue. Your dreams shrink, your energy fades. And quietly, you begin to resent the very people you once tried so hard to please. Nietzsche called this spiritual decay resentment, a toxic bitterness that seeps in when you silence your will, your voice, your truth, for the sake of so-called harmony. This is the quiet agony of the nice person who never speaks up. They smile on the outside, but inside, they're boiling. They're drained. They're angry. They're drowning. And over time, that buried rage turns inward, becoming anxiety, depression, paralysis, or worse, it spills outward as cynicism, passive aggression, or sabotage. Nietzsche warned us, repressed truth doesn't die. It transforms into a monster. You can't bury your truth and expect peace. It always finds a way out, and it rarely comes back pretty. Section 2. Why conflict isn't the enemy, it's the cure. Let's rethink what conflict really is. It's not a threat to your peace, it's the training ground for your power. Just like the body's immune system strengthens through exposure to viruses, your character strengthens through exposure to tension, disagreement, and difficulty. Avoid conflict for too long, and you lose your edge. You become unsure, indecisive, and easy to control. Psychiatrist M. Scott Peck once said, "Mental illness begins with the avoidance of pain." And where does that pain begin? Conflict. Dodge it, and you build a fantasy life, one that looks peaceful but is hollow at the core. Nature would say, when you avoid conflict, you abandon your potential. Because your true identity isn't born in comfort, it's forged in the fire of hard choices. And choice only matters when there's a price. The price of rejection, the price of discomfort, the price of walking away from what's easy. So ask yourself, how many choices have you made, not because they reflected your truth, but because they were safe? How often have you silenced your voice to keep others happy? And what did that silence cost you? Here's the brutal truth. It cost you everything. Your authenticity, your depth, your potential for a life that could have been, if only you had the courage to say, no. Yes. Enough. This is what Nietzsche meant when he said suffering isn't the enemy, it's the furnace of the self. Section 3. The sacred fire of conflict. There is a fire that transforms, but most people never enter it. They stay cold, hidden, masked. They confuse survival with peace. They confuse fear with wisdom. But those who dare to walk through the fire, they don't just survive, they evolve. They shed the false. They step into the real. They don't avoid life. They meet it, fully awake. This is where true power begins. Not in control, not in dominance, but in unwavering truth. So what does that mean for you? It means that the fear you feel when conflict arises isn't a signal to run. It's a sign to move forward. That hard conversation, that boundary you're scared to set, that truth you keep pushing away, those aren't problems, they're portals. And if you ignore them long enough, you'll vanish, bit by bit, until you no longer recognize your own life. Because the dream you want, it lives on the other side of that uncomfortable truth. And no, it's not about shouting. It's not about rage. It's about standing firm, steady, and unshakable in who you are. Section 4. The real conflict isn't out there, it's in you. Still afraid of conflict? Then maybe the real battle isn't with someone else. Maybe it's with the part of you that's been screaming to be heard. In the final part of this video, we're going to explore Nietzsche's most radical insight. The one that doesn't just reshape how you see conflict, but redefines suffering itself as the path to your transformation. Part 5. The hidden gift inside pain. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Suffering isn't a mistake. It's not a detour. It's the path itself. Not pointless pain. Not suffering for pity, but suffering with meaning. Suffering that transforms. Nietzsche called this idea amor fati, the love of fate, his definition of greatness. To want nothing to be different, not in the past, not in the future, not in all eternity, not just to endure what's necessary, but to love it. This is not passive acceptance. It's full-throated, courageous embrace of pain, of conflict, of growth. Why? Because pain carves us. Conflict strips away illusion. Struggle wakes us up. And most people turn away from this truth because it demands a total shift. Instead of asking, "How do I make life easier?" ask, "How do I become stronger?" Instead of, "How do I escape this pain?" ask, "What is this pain trying to teach me?" This shift is how you stop being a victim of your story and start becoming the author of it. Nietzsche saw it clearly. People who run from struggle become prisoners, but those who face it consciously, not recklessly, become free. Because conflict isn't destruction, it's revelation. It reveals what you need to let go of, what needs to stay, and who you really are. Part 6. You were made for this fire. Think back to the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the breakdowns. What if they weren't punishments, but initiations? What if they cracked your illusions, not your soul? What if the version of you you're meant to become can only be found in the very struggle you've spent your life avoiding? This isn't just philosophy. This is human psychology. Growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens when you confront what's real, even if it hurts. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And he was right. You don't become whole by avoiding fire. You become whole by walking through it. You will lose things, people, beliefs, approval. But you will gain something deeper, yourself, and that is priceless. Final challenge, the doorway to your real life. So now I ask you, what's one thing in your life that you're avoiding? That truth? That conversation? That decision? That's your doorway. That's your test. That's your chance to break free. If this message stirred something inside you, let it stay with you. Let it ignite something. And when it burns, don't run. Use it. Use it to walk into your life, fully alive, fully awake. Not as someone hiding from truth, but as someone who finally understands. Conflict is where truth is born, and truth is where your power lives. If this message resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with the truth you've been running from, and take the first step toward facing it. Like, subscribe, and join us on this journey into the minds of those who dared to live, not safely, but honestly. Because in the end, it's not ease that makes us unbreakable. It's the courage to face what we fear, and the fire that reveals who we truly are. Thank you for watching.